I agreed to an open marriage for the same reason most men do, because my wife wanted it, and I didn't want to lose her. Claire had always been adventurous, unpredictable, and full of contradictions. She was the type who'd spend a week devouring a book on existential philosophy, then drop everything to chase a street performer across town because she liked his music. I, on the other hand, was predictable, steady, and, let's be honest, boring in comparison. So when she came to me with the idea, I hesitated, but eventually said yes. I told myself it wouldn't change anything, that I would try but probably wouldn't take advantage of it. It was just a way to keep Claire happy. I was wrong. The first step into darkness. Claire wasted no time. She was out on dates within the first week. At first it stung, but I buried the jealousy. I had agreed after all. Then on a whim, out of curiosity, out of spite, maybe out of loneliness, I set up a date of my own. That's when I met Mara. She wasn't Claire. She wasn't a whirlwind of chaos and contradictions. No, Mara was something else entirely. Calculating, mysterious, and impossibly alluring. A woman with secrets in her eyes and a past she never fully explained. What started as casual meetings at dimly lit bars quickly turned into something deeper. Conversations stretched into the early morning hours. She told me things Claire never had, about fears, about dreams, about the dark things that lurked behind every perfect love story. And then, one night, she whispered something that changed everything. Your wife isn't who you think she is. The web of lies at first, I laughed it off, but Mara wouldn't let it go. Do you know where she goes at night? She asked me over coffee one evening. Of course, I said, but I realized I didn't. Claire always had an explanation, but I had never checked. That night, while Claire was out with a friend, I followed her. I expected a date with some guy, maybe a hotel room, a night of passion I had already made peace with. But instead, she met him. A man in a gray suit, older, with a presence that sent a chill down my spine. They spoke in hushed tones outside a cafe, glancing over their shoulders like spies in a Cold War thriller. Then Claire handed him a black envelope. He checked the contents, nodded, and disappeared into the night. I barely made it home before Claire did. She kissed me like nothing had happened. I didn't sleep. The unraveling Mara had been right. Claire had secrets. But the more I tried to uncover them, the more dangerous the game became. I confronted her one evening, casually at first. Who was the guy in the gray suit? She froze for a second, just a second, but it was enough. You followed me? She asked, voice sharp, controlled. I had to, I admitted. I feel like I don't even know you anymore. She exhaled, looked at me, then did something unexpected. She smiled, a slow, knowing smile. Then maybe it's time you learned the truth, she said. And that's when the real nightmare began. Would you like me to continue? Claire's smile unsettled me. It wasn't her usual playful smirk, or even the calculated expression she wore when she was trying to win an argument. This was different. This was the smile of someone who knew something I didn't, something I wouldn't. Like. She leaned back against the kitchen counter, crossed her arms, and stared at me for a long moment before speaking. You really want to know? I nodded, my mouth dry. Claire reached into the drawer beside her and pulled out a black envelope, the same kind I had seen her give to the man in the gray suit. She placed it on the counter between us, her nails tapping softly against it. Open it, she said. I hesitated, then picked it up, my fingers shaking slightly. Inside was a collection of photographs. At first I couldn't make sense of them. They showed me with Mara, in restaurants, in cars, one of us kissing in front of her apartment. My stomach dropped. Someone had been following me? I looked up at Claire. She didn't look angry. She looked amused. You're not the only one who's been doing some investigating, she said softly. The twist of the knife. I swallowed hard, trying to regain control. "What is this?" "Proof," she said. "Proof that you broke the rules." Rules? The word hit me like a slap. This was an open marriage, wasn't it? What rules? Claire tilted her head, watching me like a cat watching a wounded bird. "We agreed to honesty, didn't we? But you lied. You snuck around. And worst of all," she took a step closer, lowering her voice, "you fell in love with her." I opened my mouth to deny it, but the words wouldn't come, because it was true. Mara wasn't just some fling. She had become something more. Claire laughed softly. "I knew it before you did. Men are always so obvious when they're in love." I clenched my fists. "And what about you? Who's the guy in the gray suit? What secrets have you been keeping?" Claire's smile faltered for the first time. She turned away, as if weighing her next words carefully. Then she sighed. "You wouldn't understand." I grabbed her arm, forcing her to look at me. "Try me." She studied me for a moment. Then, so softly I almost didn't hear it, she whispered, "Mara isn't who you think she is." The second betrayal. A cold wave washed over me. "What?" Claire pulled her phone from her pocket and scrolled through her messages before handing it to me. There on the screen was a text thread. Messages sent between Mara and Claire. I scanned them quickly, my pulse pounding in my ears. Mara: "He's getting suspicious." Claire: "Let him. He'll dig, but he won't find anything." Mara: "You're sure about this?" Claire: 100%. The moment he falls in love with you, we win." Mara: "He's close. I can feel it." Claire: "Good. Keep him on the hook." My hands trembled as I read the last message. The room tilted. My knees nearly buckled. Mara had been working with Claire from the beginning. I looked up at Claire, my vision swimming. "Why?" She took a step forward, reaching out, but I pulled away. "Because," she said softly, "I needed to know if you could." "Be broken." The words felt like a blade sliding between my ribs. "You played me," I whispered. She nodded, eyes unreadable. "You would have done the same, given enough time." I turned and walked out the door, my heart pounding, my mind spinning. Had lost, and worse, I had no idea what game I had just been playing. The end. I didn't stop walking until the cold night air burned in my lungs. My mind was a whirlwind of betrayal, confusion, and something far worse: realization. Claire and Mara had set me up. But why? What game had I been unwittingly dragged into? I pulled out my phone, hesitated, then called Mara. It rang twice before she answered. "Hey, love." Her voice was smooth, as if nothing had happened, as if she hadn't just helped orchestrate my humiliation. I swallowed the bile rising in my throat. "We need to talk," she sighed. "I figured you'd say that." A meeting in the shadows. Mara agreed to meet me at the one place that felt neutral, the diner where we first met. When I arrived, she was already there, sitting in our usual booth, sipping a black coffee. She looked tired. Not the sultry, enigmatic woman I had fallen for, but someone weighed down by something heavier than guilt. I slid into the booth across from her, hands clasped together to stop them from shaking. "Why?" I asked, my voice raw. Mara stared at her cup for a moment before speaking. "Because Claire asked me to." That's not an answer. She exhaled slowly, then leaned forward. "You think this is just about an open marriage? Some twisted loyalty test?" I didn't answer, but she could see it in my face. Mara chuckled darkly. "Oh, Alex, you were never just a husband being tested. You were a target." The world around me seemed to blur. I gripped the table. "A target for what?" Mara finally looked me in the eye. "For something bigger than you." The pieces fall into place. She slid something across the table. A USB drive. "Take it," she whispered. But don't open it until you're somewhere safe. I hesitated, then picked it up, feeling its small, cold weight against my palm. Claire isn't who you think she is, Mara continued. And if you keep digging, neither of us will be safe. I leaned in, my voice barely above a whisper. Who is she? Mara's eyes flickered toward the door, as if expecting someone to burst. In at any moment. Someone who doesn't lose. Someone who doesn't make mistakes. Except maybe one. What mistake? Mara smiled bitterly. Letting me fall for you. Before I could respond, she slid out of the booth, dropped a few bills on the high table, and disappeared into the night. The USB drive I drove aimlessly for an hour before pulling into an empty parking lot. Hands shaking, I plugged the USB into my laptop. A single folder appeared. For Alex, I clicked it. Inside were dozens of files, financial transactions, emails, surveillance photos, blackmail material, and at the center of it all, Claire. There were files connecting her to offshore accounts, fake identities, and, most disturbing of all, classified government contracts. My wife wasn't just cheating on me. She was running an operation, and I had just become collateral damage, the final revelation. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. You've seen too much. Come home. Let's talk. C. I looked at the laptop screen, then at my phone. I had a choice. Go home and face Claire, or disappear before it was too late. What would you do? I stared at the message from Claire. You've seen too much. Come home. Let's talk. C. Every instinct screamed at me to run. But where? Claire had been watching me this whole time. She knew my habits, my weaknesses. If I disappeared, how? Long before she found me? I glanced at the laptop screen, the damning evidence glowing back at me. Offshore accounts, fake identities, blackmail. Who the hell had I been married to all these years? Mara had warned me. If you keep digging, neither of us will be safe. I took a deep breath. I needed answers, and only one person could give them to me. I was going home. The House of Lies. When I pulled into the driveway, the house was dark. No lights, no movement. My gut twisted. Claire was inside, watching, waiting. I stepped through the front door. Claire? My voice echoed through the quiet. A click sounded from the kitchen, a gas burner turning on. Then her voice, calm and measured. Lock the door, Alex. I did. Slowly, cautiously, I moved toward the kitchen. Claire stood by the stove, barefoot, swirling a glass of red wine. She looked the same, perfectly put together, effortlessly elegant, but her eyes were different, colder. You opened the USB. It wasn't a question. I nodded. Who are you, Claire? A slow smile crept across her lips. You really want the truth? Yes. She took a sip of wine, considering me. Then finally she set the glass down and leaned on the counter. All right, she said, but you won't like it. The truth. I wasn't always Claire, she began. That's just one of my names, one of my lives. My breath hitched. You married me, thinking I was just some impulsive, adventurous woman who wanted an open marriage. But the truth is, I needed an exit strategy. Exit from what? I demanded. Claire's fingers drummed against the counter. Let's just say I worked for people who don't let you quit. And when I met you, I saw a way out. A life. A cover. I swallowed. So what? I was just convenient to you? Her eyes softened. At first, but then... She hesitated. Then you became real to me. Real? I laughed bitterly. You manipulated me, played mind games, let Mara seduce me just to test me. Claire sighed. Mara was supposed to be a tool, a distraction. But she made a mistake. I scoffed. Falling for me? Claire shook her head. No, Telling you too much. Something cold slithered down my spine. Where is she now? Claire picked up her phone, tapped something, and turned the screen toward me. A photo appeared. Mara, lying in an alley, eyes open, not breathing. I staggered back. No, I told you, Alex, Claire said softly. I don't make mistakes, and I don't lose. The choice I had never felt so powerless, so trapped. My wife wasn't just a liar, she was a killer. What happens now? My voice barely held steady. Claire walked around the counter, stopping inches from me. She reached up, brushed her fingers along my jaw. That depends on you, she whispered. I didn't move, didn't breathe. You can forget everything, she said. Pretend you never saw those files. Pretend Mara was just a fling that ended badly, and we can go back to the life we had. I swallowed hard. And if I say no? Claire smiled. Then you disappear, just like Mara. The final decision. I had a choice. Stay with Claire, live a lie, survive, run, disappear, become someone else, fight back. I glanced at the wine glass on the counter. A plan formed, a desperate, reckless plan. Looked into Claire's eyes, forced a smile, and said, All right, let's talk. To be continued. Claire's smile deepened at my words. She thought she had won. She thought I would play her game. I had seconds to decide my next move. The wine glass sat on the counter beside her, half full, untouched since she poured it. My heart pounded as I reached for it. I swirled the deep red liquid, eyes locked on hers. Let's drink to new beginnings. Claire watched me carefully, then lifted her own glass. To new beginnings, she echoed. I raised the glass to my lips but didn't drink. Instead, I set it down and leaned in as if surrendering. Tell me everything, Claire. The real story. No more lies. She tilted her head, amused. You really want to know how deep the rabbit hole goes? Yes. She studied me. Then, just like that, she started talking. The organization. I wasn't always... Claire Matthews, she began. I was recruited young, trained to infiltrate, to manipulate, to remove problems. I kept my expression neutral, nodding as if I accepted this. She continued, swirling her wine. I worked for an organization that operates in the shadows. Governments, corporations. People like to believe they run the world. But my employers, they pull the strings. Chills ran down my spine. My job was simple. Get close to important people. CEOs, politicians, military officials. Learn their secrets. Control them. She took a sip of wine, savoring it. Then I met you. I forced a smirk. And I was an important target? Claire chuckled. No, Alex. You were my escape plan. She leaned in, her voice softer now. I was burned. A mission went sideways. I needed a new identity, a new life. And you? She traced a finger along the rim of her glass. You were safe, stable, predictable. I clenched my jaw. So our entire marriage was a lie? She hesitated. Not all of it. I wanted to believe that, but I knew better. The setup I had what I needed. Confirmation. That Claire was part of something bigger. That she had used me. That Mara had died because she got too close. Now, I had to survive. Claire lifted her glass again. To the past, she murmured. I watched as she took another slow sip, and then she paused. A flicker of something crossed her face. Her fingers tightened around the stem of the glass. Her breath hitched. Then she looked at me. She knew. You didn't. Drink your wine, Alex, she said softly. I met her gaze, my pulse hammering. No, a long silence. Then Claire laughed. Low and quiet at first, then deep and full of something almost like admiration. You poisoned me? She asked. I said nothing. She exhaled, shaking her head. I underestimated you. For the first time, I saw fear in her eyes. The final move, Claire swayed slightly, gripping the edge of the counter. The poison wasn't fatal, just something to weaken her. I needed her vulnerable. She tried to stand straight, but her body betrayed her. You have two choices, I said, repeating her own words back to her. Tell me how to erase myself from your world, or you won't make it to morning. She gave me a slow, wry smile. Smart. Then, to my surprise, she told me. The escape by dawn. I had everything I needed. New identification, access to offshore accounts, and a plan. Claire sat slumped in a chair, still weak but very much alive. As I stood by the door, I looked back at her one last time. You should have killed me, Alex, she murmured. Maybe, I admitted. But I wanted you to know what it feels like to lose. Then I walked out the door, disappearing into the shadows. And Claire? She wouldn't chase me, because now she had become the hunted. The end. The city was waking up as I drove away. I didn't know where I was going, only that I had to keep moving. Claire had given me what I needed, but I wasn't naive enough to think it was over. She would come for me. Not today, maybe not tomorrow. But eventually, I had humiliated her, poisoned her, stolen her secrets, and worst of all, I had won, at least for now. The safe house, I followed the instructions Claire had given me. Whether out of pride or genuine defeat, she had handed me the key to disappearing, a storage facility on the outskirts of town, Unit 47. Inside, I found a bag full of cash, 3 passports, and an untraceable phone. A fresh start. I switched phones immediately and destroyed the old one. Then I opened the laptop Claire had given me. It was clean, no tracking, no spyware. But there was one file left on the desktop, a single video. I clicked it. The warning Claire's face filled the screen. She was sitting in the same chair where I had left her, her expression unreadable. Alex, if you're watching this, congratulations. You think you've won. But you should know something. She leaned forward, and for the first time, I saw something I had never seen in Claire before. Fear. You weren't the only one being played. Mara wasn't working for me. I froze. She was working for someone else, someone bigger. Claire sighed, rubbing her temple. And now they know about you. The video cut out. Nowhere is safe. I sat in the storage unit, heart pounding. Claire wasn't my biggest problem anymore. Whoever Mara had been working for, they were still out there, watching, waiting. And now, I was in their sights. I grabbed the bag, the passports, and the phone. Then I walked out, blending into the city, and I ran, because this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning, to be continued. I drove for hours without stopping, heading west. The sun had barely begun to rise when I finally pulled into a rundown motel off the highway. The kind of place where no one asked questions, where people checked in and never checked out. I paid in cash, took the key, and locked the door behind me. Then I opened the new phone. There were no messages, no alerts, nothing to suggest that anyone knew where I was, but they would find me. Claire's warning played on a loop in my head. Mara wasn't working for me. She was working for someone else. If that was true, then Claire and I had been playing the same game, only I hadn't realized it. Mara had been manipulating both of us, and now, whoever she worked for knew I had the files. I opened the laptop, scanning the documents again. Offshore, accounts, blackmail, high-ranking officials. But one name kept appearing over and over, the Harlow Group. I had never heard of them before. No website, no news articles. Just whispers in hidden emails, transactions that linked them to both government agencies and criminal syndicates alike. I wasn't just running from Claire anymore. I was running from the people who had made her. The first message, the burner phone buzzed, An unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. "Who is this?" A voice crackled on the other end. A voice I never expected to hear again. "Hello, Alex." My blood turned to ice. Mara, a corpse that calls I couldn't breathe. "You're dead." A soft chuckle. "Not quite." I gripped the phone tighter. "I saw the photo Claire showed me." "Did you really think she was telling you the truth?" Mara said. "She wanted you to believe I was dead. She wanted you to stop looking." My mind spun. "Then where the hell are you?" "Somewhere safe. For now." "But you? You need to move, Alex. The Harlow Group knows about you, and they don't let loose ends stay loose for long." My hands were slick with sweat. "Why should I trust you?" Mara's voice hardened. "Because I'm the only reason you're still alive." The last play, I closed my eyes, inhaling deeply. Claire had lied. Mara had lied. And now, the Harlow Group was coming for me. There was only one way out of this. I had to stop running. I had to hunt them before they hunted me. I opened my laptop, fingers moving fast. If the Harlow Group thought I was just another loose end, they were about to realize something. I was no longer the prey. I was the hunter. To be continued. The moment I hung up the phone, I knew there was no going back. Mara was alive. Claire had lied. The Harlow Group was coming for me. And if I wanted to survive, I had to strike first. I pulled up everything I had on them. The scattered financial records, encrypted emails, offshore accounts. It was a web of corruption so deep that even Claire, for all her deception, had only been a pawn in their game. I wasn't dealing with just a rogue intelligence operation. I was dealing with the people who controlled them. The first move I needed: leverage. I scanned the files for something, anything, that could give me a starting point. Then I saw it, a name buried in the records. David Harlow, a ghost. No public records, no digital footprint. But a series of payments linked him to operations across the world, covert assassinations, political coups, entire regimes built and dismantled at his command. If the Harlow Group was an empire, David Harlow was the king, and kings don't hide. Forever. The trap I made a call. Not to Mara, not to Claire, to an old contact. Someone who owed me a favor from a lifetime ago. A deep voice answered. "You must be desperate, Alex." "You have no idea," I muttered. "I need eyes on someone." Discreet. A pause. Then, "Send the name." I texted it, David Harlow. 2 minutes later, my contact called back. His voice was tight, uneasy. "Walk away," he said. "Forget this." My grip tightened on the phone. "I can't." Another pause, then a sigh. "Fine. There's a location. Miami. He's moving in 3 days. That's all I can give you." It was enough. The reckoning. 3 days later, I was in Miami. The heat clung to my skin as I watched from across the street, hidden in the shadows. A sleek black car pulled up to a private airstrip. The back door opened, and there he was, David Harlow. Not a myth. Not a ghost. A man. Flesh and blood. Vulnerable. I took a slow breath. It was time to end this. Time to make them afraid. Time to make them run from me. To be continued. David Harlow stepped out of the black car, flanked by 2 men in tailored suits. Security. They scanned the area, their movements precise, practiced. These weren't just bodyguards, they were killers. I stayed in the shadows, my heartbeat slow and steady. Watching, this was my only shot. I had no backup, no exit plan. Just a name, a location, and the element of surprise. I pulled out my phone and sent a single message to Mara. I found him. Seconds later, my screen lit up. Mara. "You're not ready." I clenched my jaw. "Too late for that." "The shot you." Don't Take Harlow's men ushered him toward the private jet, his steps measured, confident. He didn't know I was here, but that wouldn't last. I reached into my jacket, wrapping my fingers around the cold steel of the gun I'd bought off a street dealer an hour ago. Unregistered. Untraceable. I raised it. Finger on the trigger. Breathe. In, breathe out. And then, my phone vibrated again. A video message. I hesitated, then pressed play, and my blood ran cold. Claire's gambit Claire was tied to a chair. Face bloodied, eyes furious. A man stood behind her, calm, composed. He held a knife against her throat. David Harlow. Alex, he said, his voice smooth, deliberate. You've been busy. Claire spat blood glaring into the camera. Don't you dare, Alex. Don't. The screen went black. A location pin dropped into my messages. They wanted me to come to them. A trap or an opportunity. I lowered the gun, my pulse a hammer in my chest. I had come to kill Harlow. But now I had a different plan. I was going to burn his entire empire to the ground. To be continued. I stared at the location pin on my phone. Claire was alive, for now. David Harlow had her, and he wanted me to come for her. Why, if he wanted me dead, he could have sent his people. If he wanted to disappear, he wouldn't have left me a trail to follow. No, this was something else, a test, a trap, a negotiation. Whatever it was, I had no choice but to walk straight into it. The meeting place. The coordinates led me to an abandoned mansion on the outskirts of Miami. It stood like a relic from another era, gutted, decayed, swallowed by vines and neglect. A place where things happened and no one asked questions. I parked a block away, tucked a knife into my boot, and checked my gun. Then I moved, through the rusted gates, up the cracked steps. The front door was open. They were expecting me. The devil's offer. I stepped inside. The air smelled of mildew and something metallic. Blood. David Harlow stood in the center of the grand hall, immaculate in a black suit, sipping a glass of whiskey. He looked at me like a professor studying a student, curious, unimpressed. Behind him, Claire sat tied to a chair, her lips split, one eye swollen. But she was alive. She met my gaze, no fear, only fury. Harlow raised his glass. Alex, you made it. I kept my voice steady. Let her go. He chuckled. You're in no position to make demands. Two armed men flanked the room, silent, watching. Harlow gestured to Claire. Did you ever ask yourself why she lied to you? Used you? I didn't take the bait. I don't care. Liar. Harlow smirked. You were just a means to an end, Alex. A way out. But even she didn't realize how much of a mess she was in. I gritted my teeth. Then tell me. Harlow took a slow sip of his drink. Mara worked for me, not Claire. The world tilted for a moment. Mara, the woman I thought I loved, the one who warned me, who said she was protecting me. You're lying, I said. Harlow chuckled. Am I? He reached into his jacket, pulled out a phone and tossed it at my feet. I hesitated, then picked it up. A video played. Mara, sitting across from Harlow. Alex is a loose end, he's too close. We either bring him in or bury him. Cold, clinical. No hesitation in her voice. My stomach twisted. Claire watched me carefully. She knew. Harlow smiled. You wanted to know the truth? Here it is. They all played you. I forced my voice to stay level. Then why am I still alive? Harlow's expression darkened. Because you're useful. The choice. Harlow set his glass down. You have two options, Alex. One, you walk away, you disappear. And I let Claire go. I narrowed my eyes. And the second? Harlow's smile turned sharp. You work for me. Silence. Claire exhaled sharply, shaking her head. Don't you dare! Harlow ignored her. You're smart, Alex. Resourceful. You figured out things no one else did. That's rare. I gripped the phone tighter. And if I refuse? Harlow sighed as if bored. Then I kill you both. Right here. Right now. The two men beside him tensed, ready. I had seconds to decide. Claire's eyes locked on mine. There was no pleading in them. No fear. Just one message. Figure it out. I took a slow breath. Then I said, fine. I'm in. To be continued. The words hung in the air, heavy with consequence. I'm in. Claire's eyes flashed with something unreadable. Anger, perhaps betrayal. Maybe both. Harlow's smile widened. Good choice, Alex. A wise one. He clapped his hands once, and his men relaxed, lowering their weapons. I could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on me. The choice I'd made was no longer mine to reverse. Claire's chair scraped against the floor as she twisted in it, trying to get a better look at me. Her voice was low, dangerous. You don't understand what you've just done. I didn't respond, keeping my gaze locked on Harlow. He gestured for me to come forward. Don't listen to her, Alex. She's a liar, a survivor, and right now she's afraid of what you'll do when you realize the truth. I walked toward Harlow, my eyes never leaving Claire. The weight of my decision had settled in, but there was something else beneath it, a sense of purpose, maybe even a plan. Harlow handed me a glass of whiskey, and I accepted it without question. I didn't drink it, though. I simply held it, letting the amber liquid reflect the dim light of the room. Welcome to the team, Harlow said, his voice smooth, almost condescending. You'll have your role, of course. Your job will be to clean up messes, to make sure that things run smoothly. I stayed silent, calculating. Of course, he continued. You'll be well compensated. He nodded toward the door, and another man stepped forward, holding a briefcase. He opened it to reveal stacks of cash, clean and pristine. A taste of what's to come. I didn't take the money. I didn't even acknowledge it. The truth was, I wasn't interested in money. I had a bigger prize in mind. Power. Revenge. Claire shifted in her chair, her voice strained. You'll regret this. They'll use you until there's nothing left. Alex, you're just another pawn in their game. Harlow's expression darkened. He moved toward her, standing just behind her, his shadow casting over her face. She talks too much. He gave a signal. One of his men stepped forward, silencing her with a quick, brutal strike to the side of her head. I flinched, but I didn't move. Claire's body jerked, but she didn't cry out. She was too proud to give him that satisfaction. Harlow stepped back, smiling at me. See? This is how we do things, Alex. We don't take chances. We eliminate them. I nodded slowly, pretending to agree, while every muscle in my body screamed for me to do something. I had just made a deal with the devil. The game begins. Over the next few days, I did as instructed. I kept my head low, performed the tasks Harlow set before me. There were meetings with shady businessmen, cleanups of messy situations, and a few moments of tension where I thought I might be exposed. But all the while, I watched. I observed. Wasn't a part of this world, not yet. But I would be. The more I learned, the more I realized how intricate and insidious Harlow's empire truly was. It wasn't just criminal, it was political, corporate, cultural. He had his hands in everything, from weapons to media to governments. There was no corner of the world untouched by his influence. And somewhere in that vast web, there was an opening. A crack in his armor. I wasn't going to be just another cog in the machine. I was going to burn it all down. The revelation. One night while I was working late in the mansion's library, I stumbled upon a file, a document buried beneath layers of encryption and passwords. It was a list, the kill list Names, dates, locations. I recognized a few of them immediately. Political figures, business leaders, people who had disappeared under mysterious circumstances. And then, buried deeper in the list, was something I hadn't expected. Claire's name. Not just her name, but a note next to it. Final asset. To be removed when necessary. My heart raced. Harlow had planned to dispose of her all along. She was never meant to survive. She was just another pawn, another tool to manipulate me, and now she was in my way. To be continued. The file trembled in my hands. Claire's name on that list, marked for elimination. Harlow's plan had always been to use her, discard her when she outlived her usefulness. The sickening truth hit me like a punch to the gut. She was nothing. More than another piece in his chess game, a pawn to manipulate until he had no use for her anymore. But the real revelation wasn't in the file itself. It was the realization that Harlow had underestimated me. Wasn't a pawn. I wasn't playing his game anymore. I was about to flip the board over. The plan begins. It took me several days to arrange everything. I knew I had one shot at this. Harlow trusted me now, which meant I could get close. But he was also watching me carefully, expecting loyalty. And that was where the weakness lay. The real question was, how far could I push before they realized I was planning to take them down? I took the file and copied it onto a USB drive, hiding it in the lining of my jacket. The list wasn't just a hit list. It was the key to the whole operation, the blueprint of everything Harlow had built. But that wasn't enough. I needed leverage, and for that, I needed Claire. The bargain I waited until the dead of night, when the mansion was quiet, and the only sounds were the whispers of the wind outside. I slipped into Claire's room, my heart pounding in my chest. She was awake, her eyes narrowed as she saw me approach. "Not a word," I whispered. "We're getting out." Claire raised an eyebrow, clearly skeptical. "You really think you can pull this off? You're already in too deep, Alex. You're in Harlow's pocket now." "Not for long," I said, my voice firm. "We're going to use his empire against him, but we need leverage. I have the list. I'll take him down. But I need you to help me." Her eyes studied me, searching for any sign of doubt, any weakness. But there was nothing. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, she nodded. "All right, I'm in. But if you screw this up, I'll make sure you don't get out alive." I smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. Deal. The final move. The next day, Harlow called me into his office. His demeanor was cold, calculated. He didn't trust me completely, but I had earned enough of his favor for him to let me handle some of the more delicate operations. "You're proving to be useful, Alex," he said, his eyes scanning me carefully. "I've had a change of heart about you. I'm willing to offer you more." I kept my face neutral. "More?" Harlow walked over to his desk and opened a drawer, pulling out a folder. He handed it to me. "This is your next assignment. There's a certain politician who's been causing problems. Handle it." I glanced down at the file. My mind raced, my pulse quickening. Inside, I saw the name of a high-ranking senator, one I had met once at a charity gala. I smiled to myself. This was it, the opportunity I'd been waiting for. "Understood," I said, locking eyes with him. "I'll take care of it." But as I turned to leave, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I glanced down at the message. "Mara, you're making a mistake. Don't think you can take Harlow down. He's untouchable." I pocketed the phone, a cold chuckle escaping me. Mara had been a player in this game too, but she wasn't the one who held the cards now. It was time for Harlow to play his last hand. The trap is set. That evening I met Claire in the garage. The sound of the engine starting was a signal. We had exactly 3 hours before Harlow realized what I had done. The plan was simple, yet deadly. We would sabotage Harlow's empire from the inside. Claire would get us into his secure vault, where the real power was hidden, the accounts, the connections, the real power players. I would be the distraction, a final act to make sure Harlow's men wouldn't have time to stop her. "Are you ready?" I asked her, the weight of everything pressing down on me. She gave me a sharp nod. "I've been ready for a long time." We split up as soon as we reached the mansion. Claire went for the vault, while I made my way to Harlow's office. The countdown had begun. I moved with purpose, knowing full well that I was walking into the lion's den. The guards were distracted by the chaos Claire was causing. And that was when I finally found Harlow, alone, vulnerable. I didn't hesitate. I pulled the gun from my jacket, and for the first time in my life, I knew exactly what I had to do. The final choice. I held the gun to Harlow's chest, my heart pounding. "It's over." His eyes widened, the mask of calm slipping away. "You can't do this, Alex." "I already have." The room was silent, the weight of the decision hanging between us, but before I could pull the trigger, I heard the door behind me creak. Open. Claire stood there, a gun of her own in hand. "You'll have to make a choice, Alex," she said softly, her voice laced with a dangerous calm. "Me or him?" The gun trembled in my hand. I had everything in my grasp, the power to take down the man who had tried to destroy me. But the choice wasn't so simple anymore. The room felt impossibly small, the air thick with tension, the weight of the decision pressing down on me like a vice. Claire was standing there, her eyes unwavering, the barrel of her gun trained on Harlow, and yet it was me she was watching. Harlow's smirk returned, and he straightened up slowly as if trying to regain control of the situation. "You see, Alex? This is what I was talking about. Loyalty, trust. In this world, it's all about which side you choose." I swallowed hard. Claire's words echoed in my mind. Me or him? Could I kill Harlow? The man who had manipulated, twisted, and used me for his own gain? Could I do it and end his reign once and for all? But then there was Claire, the woman who had once been my ally, my lover, the woman who had betrayed me, who had lied about everything, who had known more than she'd ever let on. I knew what she was capable of. I knew she had been playing her own game all along. "Alex?" Claire's voice was softer now, almost coaxing, but still steely. "This is the moment. Choose." The gun in my hand felt heavier. I had trained for moments like this, held my breath in the face of danger, but now, with everything on, the line, I couldn't see a way out. "You think you're the first to try this?" Harlow said, his voice dripping with mockery. "I've had men like you in my sights for years, men who think they can outsmart me." "You're wrong," I said more, to myself than him. "This ends tonight." Claire's eyes flickered, a brief hesitation in her expression, before it vanished. "It doesn't have to be like this," she said quietly, almost pleading. "We can work together. Fix this." The silence stretched, thick and oppressive. Harlow laughed softly, and his laugh was the final straw. I couldn't let him manipulate me anymore. I turned the gun toward him, the weight of the decision settling inside me like a cold stone. My finger tightened on the trigger. It was time. But before I could pull the trigger, Claire did something I never expected. She lowered her gun. A brief second, time seemed to stop. The world held its breath. Claire looked at me, and I saw something in her eyes. Regret? No. Surrender. "I'm sorry," she whispered, almost too quietly to hear. "But I can't let you do this." The words hit me harder than any bullet. I lowered the gun, a part of me knowing the truth. She wasn't the enemy. I was. Harlow's smile faltered. "What are you doing, Claire?" "I'm choosing," she said, turning the gun slowly to face Harlow instead. "This ends with you." My heart stopped. She was still playing. Before I could process, what was happening? Claire pulled the trigger. The sound of the gunshot echoed in the room. The fall Harlow stumbled back, his face contorted in disbelief, his eyes wide with shock. Blood spread across his shirt, staining the once pristine fabric. He didn't fall immediately. He tried to stay upright, but the wound was too severe. His hands reached for the desk, grasping for something to hold on to. "Fool," he rasped. "You'll never—" But his words faded as he collapsed to the floor, lifeless, the sound of his fall like a final nail in the coffin of his empire. I stood there, staring at him, my mind racing to catch up with the events unfolding. Claire's hand was still trembling from the shot, but she was steady, cold, determined. She didn't look at me. She didn't need to. The decision had been made. I couldn't speak. I wasn't sure I could even breathe. The weight of it all, the choices, the betrayals, the secrets, came crashing down on me. Claire finally turned to me. Her face was pale, but her expression was unreadable. "I didn't want it to end like this, Alex," she said, her voice tight. "But this world doesn't allow mercy." "You killed him," I whispered. The weight of it hit me, and I felt a strange emptiness, a hollow space where my old life used to be. "Not just him," Claire replied, her tone sharp. "I killed the world he built. This was never about Harlow. It was about control, about survival." She stepped closer, her eyes locking onto mine. "I needed you to understand that." The room felt colder now. The smell of blood was heavy in the air. But the silence that followed was the loudest thing I'd ever heard. "Why?" I asked, my voice barely audible. "Why didn't you just tell me? Why didn't you warn me?" Claire's lips curled into a bitter smile. "You wouldn't have believed me. You would have never trusted me. Not until it was too late." A flicker of something, maybe guilt or regret, passed through her eyes, but she quickly masked it. I swallowed hard, trying to steady myself. This wasn't over. It couldn't be. The price of power, the weight of Harlow's empire, the chaos, the manipulation, the strings pulled behind the scenes, was now in our hands. Claire had just killed the man who controlled the world, but there was still so much left to do. I looked down at the gun in my hand, my fingers cold around its grip. "Now, what?" I asked. The question was simple, but the answer felt impossible. The silence in the room was almost suffocating. The finality of what had just happened hung over us like a storm cloud, thick with the promise of destruction. I looked at the body of David Harlow, sprawled out on the floor, a pool of blood slowly expanding around him. The mastermind was gone. I had just crossed a line I couldn't uncross. Claire didn't flinch. She didn't even look at Harlow's body. Her eyes were cold, calculating, like a general surveying a battlefield. "Now we take everything," she had said, her voice steady, unwavering. But what did that mean exactly? What could it possibly mean when the world Harlow had built was as vast and intertwined as it was? Claire stepped toward the desk, running a hand over the surface, eyes flicking over the papers, the files, the details of the empire that had controlled every aspect of our lives. I wasn't sure if I could handle it. The enormity of it all, the wealth, the power, the corruption. It felt like I was standing at the edge of a precipice, looking into an abyss. "How do we even begin?" I asked, the words escaping before I could stop them. Claire finally looked at me, a glimmer of something, unreadable in her eyes. "We don't begin, Alex. We just take." She grabbed a set of keys from Harlow's desk, the metallic clink of them loud in the silence. "The vault, the assets, every secret he's buried, it's all ours now." Her words hit me like a jolt of electricity. Everything. The empire, the money, the connections, everything that had kept Harlow on top, everything that had kept me in his grip was now ours. But even as I nodded, even as I knew that this was the moment I had been waiting for, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease that had settled in my chest. What was I becoming? What was Claire becoming? The power shift. We moved quickly after that. No time for hesitation. No time for doubts. Claire led the way, as if she had known this moment was coming for years. She had the files, the keys, the codes to the vault. She had the plan, and I followed her. We slipped past the remaining guards who were still in shock, trying to process the fact that their leader was dead. It didn't matter now. Harlow was gone. His empire was ours for the taking. Claire opened. The door to the vault, the massive steel door creaking as it revealed the vast expanse of wealth hidden inside, more money than I had ever seen in my life, along with countless files, documents, and digital backups of every criminal transaction Harlow had ever made. It was all there, the world at our fingertips. I stared at the stacks of cash, the gleaming jewels, the encrypted hard drives. A part of me wanted to take it all, to embrace the power that came with it, but another part of me recoiled. "Do you see it?" Claire's voice broke through my thoughts. She was standing in front of a large terminal, her fingers dancing over the keyboard with a fluidity that suggested she'd done this before. She was ready for this. I moved toward her, watching as she accessed the digital files, as she downloaded the data, the files that held the secrets, the names, the connections, everything that Harlow had kept hidden. Claire glanced up at me, her eyes sharp. "This is where we begin, Alex. The world Harlow controlled, we tear it apart, but we build something new, something better." I stared at her, trying to see if she was really the same person who had once shared my bed, the person I had trusted with everything, the woman I had loved. But now, she was a different version of herself, the architect of destruction. Was I still in love with her? Or had I become addicted to the power she promised? I looked away, unable to answer my own question. The cost of power. The next few days were a whirlwind. Claire and I worked tirelessly to consolidate our control over Harlow's empire. We moved, quickly, methodically, ruthlessly, eliminating threats, forging alliances with Harlow's former partners, and taking over his most lucrative operations. But with every step, I could feel the cost of it weighing on me. Claire's methods were cold, calculated. There was no room for weakness in her world, no room for hesitation. And I found myself growing more like her every day. There were moments when I'd catch myself staring at the files, at the evidence of Harlow's manipulation, his cruelty, and I'd feel a flicker of doubt. Was I becoming like him? Was I just another puppet in this game of power? And then I'd see Claire, standing in front of the mirror, her expression a mask of determination, and I'd realize, no, I was not like him. I was worse. I had made the choice. I had killed Harlow, taken his empire, and now I had to live with the consequences. But deep down, there was still a part of me that couldn't let go of the question. Was this really the life I wanted? The final betrayal. It was late one evening, after a long day of meetings and negotiations, that Claire finally spoke the words I had been dreading. The gun in Claire's hand gleamed in the dim light of the room, its presence a cold reminder of how far everything had gone. The click of the safety being released echoed like a death knell in my mind. I didn't move, didn't even breathe for a moment. The world around me was a blur. Claire, the woman who had once been my confidant, my partner, my lover, was now the one who would end me. She stood before me, her face unreadable, the same woman I had trusted with everything, now holding the weapon that would be my undoing. Swallowed hard, my throat dry, the words came out hoarse, unsteady. "You knew this was coming, didn't you?" Claire's lips curved slightly, a cold smile that didn't reach her eyes. I told you, Alex. There's no place for weakness in this world. You were never meant to be a partner. You were always just another pawn. The words hit me like a hammer. Each syllable a reminder of how blind I had been, how deeply I had underestimated the woman standing before me. I was just another tool, another piece of the game, disposable the moment I ceased to be useful. But we had a plan, I said, trying to steady my voice, to grasp at any semblance of control. We were supposed to take it all, together. Claire's eyes flickered, and for a moment I saw a flash of something behind the cold exterior. Remorse? No, it was too late for that. Plans change, she said flatly. And you changed, Alex. You became a threat to everything we've built. To me? I shook my head, feeling the ground slip out from beneath me. You used me, Claire. You used me to get what you wanted, and now I'm a liability? Yes, she replied, her voice steady, without a hint of hesitation. You're a liability. The silence in the room thickened, oppressive. My heart pounded, the weight of her betrayal sinking deeper into my bones. But even as the cold terror of the moment gripped me, something inside me snapped. I was done being a pawn. I took a slow step back, my mind racing. I couldn't move fast enough to disarm her. I couldn't win this in a fight, not like this. But maybe, just maybe, I could outplay her. You're making a mistake, I said, my voice gaining strength. You think you can kill me and walk away with all of it, but you're wrong. You're just as much a part of this game as I am. Claire's eyes narrowed, her finger twitching on the trigger. Enough talking, Alex. I reached for my pocket where I'd stashed the small device I'd been holding onto for just this moment, an encrypted flash drive, the key to taking everything Claire had built. Before I could pull it out, Claire's eyes locked onto my movements. Don't, she warned, her voice now laced with a venom I hadn't heard before. If you think you can play me one more time, you're wrong. But I wasn't trying to play her. I was trying to survive. Do you remember the first night we met? I asked, my voice low, trying to buy time. The night you told me we could have anything we wanted, that we were stronger together? Claire's face remained impassive, but I saw the flicker again, the faintest twitch at the corner of her lips. For a split second, she looked vulnerable. That was before everything changed, she said, her eyes hardening again. Before I realized you would never truly understand what it takes to win. I took another slow step back, moving toward the desk, where Harlow's personal files were still scattered. The files, the data, the secrets, my last chance. I understand enough, Claire, I said, my hand brushing against the desk, fingers brushing over the small stack of papers. I understand that everything you've built can collapse in an instant. The people you've betrayed, they'll come for you. For both of us. She didn't flinch. I'm not afraid of them. Then you should be, I replied, my voice gaining confidence. You've made too many enemies. Harlow may be gone, but the people he controlled, they're still out there, and they'll never forgive you for what you've done. Her expression remained stoic, but I could see the crack beginning to form. Fear. You think they'll just let you walk away with all of this? I asked, inching closer to the computer terminal where Harlow's encrypted files lay. You've dug yourself so deep, Claire, so deep that even if you walk away from me, you'll never get out, not clean. I could see it now, the conflict in her eyes. She was struggling, the gun trembled in her hand. She was wavering. I didn't waste a second. Without thinking, I lunged forward, grabbing the flash drive from the desk and holding it high, just as Claire's eyes widened in realization. No! She shouted, but it was too late. I pressed a button on the drive. In an instant, the entire mansion's system went down, the lights flickering as I activated the fail-safe protocol I'd put in place weeks ago. The files, the secrets, everything, it was all on the drive now. Claire's face twisted in fury. "You bastard!" she spat. The world outside the mansion felt different, colder, somehow more real. The weight of what had just happened still pressed on my chest, but as I stepped into the night, it felt like the first breath of freedom in a long time. The city lights blurred into a haze ahead of me, the hum of the streets echoing in my ears. I kept moving, faster now, knowing that Claire would be on my heels any minute. She wouldn't let me escape so easily. She never did. But as I walked, the flash drive hidden deep in my coat pocket, my mind spun. What next? I had outplayed Claire for the moment, but I had no illusions. The game wasn't over. It had only just begun. I pulled the collar of my coat up, making sure I blended in with the shadows. There was no time to waste. Claire would be calling her contacts, she'd be mobilizing her forces, and she wouldn't rest until she hunted me down. But I knew something she didn't. I held the key now. The drive in my pocket wasn't just a record of Harlow's empire. It was the blueprint for dismantling everything she had built. Every secret, every corrupt deal, every dark corner she had crawled into to stay on top. It was all there, and I had control over it. I couldn't help but wonder, how did I get here? Not. Long ago I had been just another man, caught up in a marriage that teetered on the edge of collapse. I had agreed, reluctantly, to the open marriage with Claire, thinking it would save us, save me from the suffocating cage we had built around our lives. But instead, I had been drawn into a world of lies, manipulation, and violence, where no one was ever who they seemed to be. Now I had been forced to kill to survive, to play the game Claire had set into motion. And as I stood there, the cold wind stinging my face, I couldn't help but feel a strange mixture of triumph and hollow emptiness. I had won for now. But what would winning even mean? A call to arms. Didn't have much of a plan, but I knew one thing for sure. I needed allies, real allies, people who had nothing to gain from Claire's empire, people who were just as tired of being manipulated as I had been. I made my way through the streets, sticking to the back alleys and side roads, always looking over my shoulder. Every shadow seemed to hide a threat, every street corner a potential ambush. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized Claire had underestimated me, and that was the edge I needed. I stopped at an old, dimly lit diner on the outskirts of town. It wasn't much, but it had served as a safe house for a lot of people who'd crossed paths with Harlow and lived to tell the tale. A few names lingered in my mind. People who owed me, or more accurately, people who owed Harlow's downfall, to my betrayal. I walked through the door, the bell chiming above me. The place was empty except for the waitress behind the counter and an older man hunched over a newspaper in the corner booth. I slid into the booth opposite him, not bothering with pleasantries. "It's time," I said quietly, locking eyes with him. He didn't look up immediately. Instead, he folded the newspaper slowly and set it down, his weathered face full of suspicion. "You're a long way from home, kid." "I need help," I said, keeping my voice steady. "And I know you can get it." There was a long pause, a moment where I thought he might turn me away, might tell me to go to hell, but then his eyes softened, just for a moment. "You're a fool if you think anyone's going to risk their necks for you after what you did to Harlow." "Maybe," I replied, leaning in. "But I don't need everyone. I just need enough." The man grunted, leaning back in his seat. "What's the plan then? You think you can take her down?" "Claire's no joke, kid. She's got connections you wouldn't even believe. People you can't touch." "I don't need to touch her," I said, a sly smile creeping onto my face. "I just need to take away the things that matter." The man's eyes flickered, a spark of interest in his gaze. "You think you can dismantle what she's built? You've got guts, I'll give you that." I've got more than guts, I said, reaching into my pocket and pulling out the flash drive. I set it down between us, sliding it across the table. This is the key to everything. It's Harlow's entire empire, the connections, the dirty deals, everything. But it's not about that. It's about Claire. She thinks she controls it. All, but she doesn't, not anymore. The man's eyes went wide as he looked at the drive. This changes things. Exactly, I replied. And I need people who know how to use it. People who won't hesitate when it comes to making sure Claire's empire crumbles. He studied me for a moment, then nodded. All right, kid. You've got a deal, but you better be ready. Because if you're playing this game, you're going all the way. There's no turning back. I didn't hesitate. I'm ready. The unlikely allies. Within the next few days, the plan started to take shape.